So I want to talk about accidentals, and also known as chromatics, also known as passing tones. And I just want to back up really quickly and recap on a video I did regarding scales. In particular, I'm gonna talk about minor scales, but I did a video where I talked about all the different types of like minor scales you could use over a minor chord. And if you've seen my video on modes or the Nashville number system or minor chord choices, you'll realize that all these different minor scale options, they all have a common chord tones. They all share obviously a root, a minor third, and in almost every case a perfect fifth, but they've got that minor quality. So the idea with that was you could sort of, if I'm gonna put a chord on here, just a drone. Yeah, that's my super tacky Yamaha PSR 27 accompaniment. It's just droning on A minor right now. So yeah, in that video I showed that, you know, you could play a natural minor, right? You could play, and that's a 6th mode. You could play a Phrygian mode. You could play Dorian. They all have a root. They all share the same chord tones. Harmonic minor, melodic minor. But they all, so what I want you to take from that is they all share the same root, 3rd and 5th chord tone. And I want you to think about putting scales aside and think of passing tones as a means of moving you know, to and from those chords. So instead of thinking of scales, think more of like what's the chord arpeggio. And so for A minor, obviously that's A, C, E, right? And then back to A. So technically, if I wanted to add a passing tone to bridge the gap between those notes, I might take something really simple like I might take a leading passing tone or a leading tone just beneath the 5 and get a so that I just added that. It doesn't really belong to any of the scales I talked about, and but it doesn't matter. It's not important. It's just a passing tone. It's just a way to get me to one of my notes, you know, one of those 3 arpeggio notes. And it sounds perfectly, it adds color, there's no question. And that's why they call it a chromatic, chroma meaning color, very colorful. So what I like to do is think less about scales and think more about where are the key notes I want to play. What are the really important notes I want to play? So when I'm playing in A minor, for example, obviously the root's pretty important, and the 3rd is like really important, and I'd say the 5th is less important in describing that chord. But with those two, we could add some passing tones and get some interesting lines that don't really belong to any scale. So I'm going to show you a couple different ideas. So I'm going to basically, I'm going to put a passing tone in front of both of those notes. This note, the A, and the C. And what I want to do is put a passing tone right before the C, and I want to return to the A by putting a passing tone in front of the A. So we get a line that sounds like this. Is that still A minor? I think so. Pretty dark, pretty colorful. Still minor though. I could put. That's my dog barking. So I like to invent melodic lines that when I feel, I don't tend to think in scales. I tend to think in chord tones. What are the important chord tones? And then how do I move around those chord tones? And, you may be in the habit of like trying to pick a scale that's going to get you there. And that's an approach, but it's not the only approach. Passing tones, can function in the same way to sort of move you to those important tones. There's something I should mention about, what is a passing tone? It doesn't have to be a half step above or below. Typically it is, but it doesn't have to be. It could be a whole step above. It could be a whole step below. It could be a fifth above. It could be a fifth above or a perfect fourth below. The point is that it kind of creates a movement towards that note you're trying to land on. So here's an example of that same shape, A and C, using a whole step above as a passing tone, and it would sound like this. Passing tone. Could do a passing tone half step above those key notes. It's gonna sound. It still functions, even though those chromatics don't belong to any of those scales. I could do a whole step below. I could do fifths above. Somebody might argue, oh well, those are just some notes from some of those scales. Sure, however you think about it. But the point is you're adding some. These passing tones add a certain color and tension to those goal tones, if you will. And I think it's an important concept to at least consider. Especially if you feel like you're getting stuck in certain, scale thinking. Like I said, you know, I know a lot of the different scales, and it's great to learn all that stuff. I think it's equally important to free yourself though from, you know, the idea of playing, you know, scale options, and think more of, hey, I've got all of these different, these are the important notes I need to hit. How can I use passing tones to get me there? And what's interesting about it as well is, you know, you can mix and match how you approach these different chord tones. What's interesting is when you start repeating, you know, different passing tone shapes, and you start to get, I think the ear likes to hear that repetition. It sounds musical, even though it's accidental. And I'll just show you an example of what I mean. I want to play that minor arpeggio, and I want to prefix it with, I want to prefix each of those chord tones a half step below, and you can hear what it sounds like. I'm gonna go. Here's some other interesting things that you can start to do with that. Is I don't necessarily have to play the passing tones. I could maybe lump together some of those passing tones and get a parallel chord shape that acts like its own passing arpeggio. And I want to take that same idea a half step below and play each of its notes. You'll see. So here's where I want to be. I basically ended up getting a kind of a sound that I'm playing that arpeggio. See, I just played all three of those passing tones together to get me to this. Can you do that? Sure you can. Anyways, I hope that wasn't totally out to lunch. I know when I embarked on, you know, trying to understand harmony and what my options were, I slowly started to realize that all the tasty stuff was the accidentals and the chromatic stuff, and like that's where the gold was, you know. And that landing, really, it gets boring when you land on the chord tones. It's really about the journey towards those gold tones where all the candy and sweetness is. You know, landing on those key important chord tones is really sort of just it's just really a small point in time. Anyways, this you don't want to overuse this, but if you're finding you're stuck either with a scalar type approach to like building your melodies, or you just want to add a little bit of color, a little bit of additional tension, even just temporarily, momentary bits of tension, passing tones, accidentals, you know, use them to move towards those important notes, and forget about scales entirely. Let your ears be the judge of what works and what doesn't. Don't be afraid to go way outside for a second and step back in. That kind of complementary contrast is exciting for our ears to hear. As long as you don't overdo it and exhaust people with it. It's like any device, you can overuse it. So I think that's about it. That's like a 15-minute video. It's pretty long, but I wanted to show you some ideas of you know, some different approaches. Anyways, as usual, comments, criticisms, concerns. Till next time.